So we're going to have a final bit of preparation for unseen poetry. Run through an example, the washing never gets done, and think carefully about the process that you might go through. You might want to pause now and have a read through before we start, or you might want to pause at different stages in the video because I'll give you a number of stages and some advice, and at each one it might be worth pausing, running through the ideas yourself, and then checking back to see if that's what we've come up with together. So, piece of advice number 1, consider the title carefully. In this instance, the washing never gets done is actually the same as the first line of the poem, and we might think about what that represents. We might think about the emotions around it, what the washing is supposed to represent, but generally it's worth considering, does it give us some sort of crucial information to understand the poem in terms of what it's about or where it's set? And then could it be some kind of metaphor? In some of the poems you get, it's very difficult to understand the poem without thinking about the title as the focus of the poem, and without the title it might not even make sense. But regardless, it's going to cut to the heart of what the poet wants to get across. It will have been chosen carefully, so think about it in that way. The next piece of advice I've got is to look at the first and last lines carefully, and to consider a few things. Firstly, what is the meaning? So what can we see the poem's about from those lines? Secondly, what kind of images are attached to them and what kind of tone is created? So what does it make us feel? What does it put us in mind of? And finally, as a little window into structure, what has changed between the first and last lines? It might be that they're quite contained, or it might be that they spill out into a whole stanza or a couple of lines. But in this instance, the washing never gets done, we've spoken about. The last one, if I go from perhaps the second line here, every drop of dew on every blade of grass in the meadow, as far as the eye can see, into the dusk. My initial thoughts here would be that we've changed the focus of the poem quite a lot, and the tone. So if the washing never gets done, it's quite mundane and focusing very inwardly on ordinary life, we end on quite a dramatic images of staring out into nature. And then I can go back and think, what have I noted throughout the poem? So that's number 2. Number 3, and this is where you might really want to pause, is to go through and then just summarise the tone of the poem, what we feel. And it's up to you how you want to approach this. It might be that actually the first and last lines give you a really clear idea. It might be that you want to sort of jump ahead for a moment into 4. So I'll just note these down at the side. So 2, first and last lines, 3, tone or emotion, and 4, images and patterns. Now, I've got a bit of a window here. I think, as I said, it feels quite dry and dull in the first instance, and then when I get down to the bottom, it feels quite dramatic and the focus on beautiful things. But I could just then see what else I could pluck out from this. So if I go through the first section, patterns and images, well, the washing never gets done, and we end with caesura here, a full stop. Not that unusual, but we'll keep going. The furnace never gets heated. Okay, so what we might call in persuasive speech anaphora here, but the repetition of the, and we've got again more caesura and quite short clipped lines. Books never get read, similar. Life is never completed, again. Okay, so I might summarise this as the tone here is of, boredom, monotony, maybe even resentment. This person doesn't seem very happy about life. And then I might look at the end. So the wonder is that beside all this, one can notice the spring, which is so full of everything, continuing in all directions, into the evening clouds, into the red wind's song, and into every drop of dew on every blade of grass in the meadow, as far as the eye can see, into the dusk. So very, very different. Here we've got quite impressive imagery. The spring, the clouds, the winds, the meadows, the birds. And a very, very different focus in terms of structure. So in terms of patterns, we move from lots of short clip lines to flowing and jammed lines, creating a real sense of freedom. And if I pause there for a minute, what we've just done there, that's taken us 3 or 4 minutes of analysis, would be enough to get a pretty good answer. If we're running out of time in the literature paper, we might just summarise this section, comment on the structure, the punctuation, pluck out a few useful images or literary devices if we can spot them, and explain the comparison. So in the beginning of the poem, this is the focus and this is how it makes us feel. At the end, this is the focus and this is how it makes us feel. We have to make sure that we focus on the question, which in this case is, how does the poet present ideas about daily life and connecting with the natural world? But we have it right there, don't we? Daily life gets in the way, dull, repetitive. Connecting with the natural world, well, it gets in the way when we do reach the natural world. It's full of beauty and wonder. So that would be a start. If we've got all of this down, we've got the tone and the emotion of the piece, we know what the writer's intending, we've got the images and the patterns, we could get on to 5, which is the message of the poem. Now, hopefully you can see that all of these things, 1, 2, 3 and 4, all build into 5. What is the poet getting across? And I pretty much just summarised it, that life is challenging and complex and can be irritating and boring, but there is a beautiful world beneath it. And once we've got all of this down, the thing that we could have done at any stage here, but I think is best left until number 6, is to start zooming in for particularly powerful quotations and devices. So in this poem, I might, for instance, go straight to the simile, and they will very probably choose poems with a couple of simple similes in there, just to make it nice and simple, to get some marks on the board. So life is like a ball, which one must continually catch and hit so it won't fall. And all we need to do is make sure that we've spotted it, we use the right device, but also that we comment on the effect. So what kind of impression do we get from that? Well, that maintaining a balance in life is something that is tenuous and delicate, likely to fall at any time. When the fence is repaired at one end, it collapses at the other. Well, not especially sophisticated, but this one might put us in mind then of the same device really, just without that direct comparison, so we could see this as a metaphor. When you try to fix one thing, you find that another element of it breaks. And then we might also think about crucial point here, the structure in terms of these devices. So I would say that in this poem there is a clear turning point, or what you might call, especially in sonnets, a volta. Now you can use the word volta if you want to. It's not technically a volta unless it's in a sort of a Petrarchan sonnet, but you can use the word because it just literally means in Italian turn, and a lot of poems have a point where they just turn, the focus shifts. So in this poem, that then leads you into a number of other devices. You can think about all of the imagery, the series of images that contrast with each other, things breaking, unread, unused, compared with the beautiful images below. And then that leads you into a very simple device, these of contrast or juxtaposition. All I would have to do then is break down the poem. So much in the same way that we do for the language poem. For 24 marks, you might write 3 paragraphs. Make sure that you focus on the question, and you could break it down just in collections of lines, but in this one, I would be tempted to look at it in 3 sections. So paragraph 1, commenting on the title, the tone, the punctuation, the message of the poem. 2, the similes, the metaphors, the confusion. And then 3, the turning point and the beauty beneath.